Okay, cool.
What? Can you? Wait, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, well, as Linda said, I'm Mark Jackson. And
One of the amigos?
that's the same one.
All right.
Yes, yes. And as you get older, you get a little lighter. So, anyway, yes, I am a felon. And I was sentenced to a 15-year term in Department of Corrections. And let me tell you a little bit about how I got into trouble. And it was senseless, but it happened.
What are you doing there?
So I was a trader in the stock market, and I was good at it, guys. I made over $1 million a year trading stocks. After a while.
Yeah, I
Now,
like the fruit bar.
I was brought up in a family, guys, where my father was a very hard-charging businessman. And he lived his life thinking that the more money a person had, the better human being they were. So when you're little, like I was a little boy, and I looked up to my dad. We'd walk down the street, and we lived in a close-knit neighborhood, so everybody knew everybody. And these guys would come up to my dad, his name was Ted, they go, "Hey Teddy, how you doing?" "Oh, fine, fine." When the guy walked away and was out of earshot, my dad would say to me, "Now Mark, he's a nice guy, but he'll never amount," he always said, "he'll never amount to nothing." "Why won't he amount to anything, Dad?" "Because he doesn't make enough money."
Wow.
So, most of my dad's friends were like that, and I grew up in that environment. So, a little bit of that stuck with me. I was an impressionable young man, a kid. So, my high school years were normal. Went to college for a year, I hated it. And I went to University of Denver, a private school. My dad paid for it, but I hated it. And so I quit, and I went to live in Capitol Hill, which back in the 70s was a lot rougher neighborhood than it is now. So I learned a lot about life in the 2 or 3 years I was living hand to mouth, kind of I had an apartment, but I was always out partying, doing whatever. One day I was talking to my father, and he goes, "Son, are you ready to be a man?" He goes, "Are you sick of being broke?" And I was. I said, "Yeah, I'm tired of it." He says, "Come work with me, and I'll turn you into a man." I went to work with him. And he had just sold a slew of banks that he had to a big corporation in Cleveland. And he could have retired many times over, but again, he had to make as much money as he could because that legitimized him as a man. Not very healthy, but that's how it was. So he was in real estate at that time, and he taught me real estate, and I didn't like it at all. So he goes, "Well, I also trade stocks, but you can never make a real living out of it. It's like a hobby." And back in the 1970s, this was a long time ago, the penny stock market in Denver was flying high. The oil and gas, Denver used to be a boom and bust town, not like it is now. Now it's technology, all kinds of industry. I don't know that it'll ever bust again, but back when it was only oil, it would boom when oil was doing great, and it would bust when oil crashed. So when I learned this business, oil was hot. I would buy stocks at like 10 cents a share, sell them at $1, just like that. It's called the IPO market, initial public offerings. My dad loaned me $25,000. He said, "If you lose this money, I'm done with you." Well, I was 24 years old. I turned that 25 grand into $250,000 by the end of the year. And I was hooked. My dad was shocked. He said, "God, you are good at this." I said, "I love it, Dad." And I'm not sure what I loved about it. I love the fast action. You buy a stock, 10 minutes later you sell, you make all this money. Wow, instant gratification. And I had this money, and I had a lot more money than my peers at the time. It made me feel great. I thought, my dad's onto something. I guess the more money you have, the better you feel. So, I was hooked on the market. The penny stock market crashed in about 1979. So I just started learning about the market all over the country. I started calling brokers all over the country. I studied all the stock tables. Wall Street Journal, studied the stock market in New York, in Florida, in Chicago, everywhere. And I became a great trader all around the country. And I was routinely making, after I turned 30 years old, $1 million a year. Short-term income, so I paid, back then tax rates were ridiculous, paid almost 50% in tax, but I kept half of it. Short-term gain.
Wow.
That was back then. So things are going well, they're going great. I get married, I have 2 kids, I'm feeling on top of the world. And all of a sudden I started getting people calling me up saying, Mark, can you teach me what you do? And I thought, you know what, I'll be happy to, because I was such a good trader that I would not be creating competition for myself. These guys would not really have any money to trade with, they'd be novices. So I was happy to train them because it wasn't a threat to me. Now what I should have done, which I would do today, I would say, you bet I'll teach you because I like you and I want to see you succeed. Back then I'm thinking, well, as long as it doesn't hurt me, I'll tell you how to do it.
Right.
Selfish. So I taught these guys, probably 6, 7 of them. Well, around the time that I got done training them, there was a fellow that I knew that had married into an extremely wealthy family worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he was able to get some of that money and start what's called a hedge fund. And a hedge fund, they're all over the street, all over Wall Street, pools of money that can do any kind of business you want it to do. Buy stocks, sell stocks short, which is hoping stocks will drop. Options, bonds, anything. Well, this guy set up this fund to buy and sell these new issues that I had been doing all these years. And these young kids went to work for this guy. That guy had as much money as I had, he dwarfed me. So these young kids were able to access his money and trade the same stocks I was. So if I'm making $1 million a year, before I knew it, these guys were making $5, $6, $7 million a year. And it ticked me off. I'm thinking, how dare these guys do this? I taught them this business and they're dwarfing me. They make me feel like this tall, a little peon, because again, they have more money than me. So I said, I gotta catch up to them. So worst decision I ever made in my life, because what I did is I opened up my business to outside investors. And I had over $50 million come into my accounts within 6 months. I put all the money in one account, my account, because when you trade with brokers, you come at them with strength. So I have one big account, it had probably $65, $70 million in it. And I was getting all this stock. And there's another thing that's wrong. I give 3 talks. One of them is how to recognize white-collar crime. What I just did to tell you about was breaking the law. I was commingling everybody's money together. You can't do that. So I had my money, the investors' money, I had some bank lines, it was all in one account. I knew it was wrong, but I thought, you know what? I'm gonna make so much money, who cares what I do, as long as everybody makes money. Another bad thing, you've always gotta follow the law. I'm sure a lot of guys here have not, at times. Gotta follow the law. I didn't do it, but I thought, it doesn't matter because I'm Mark Jackson, I make lots of money, I'm above all that stuff. So actually it goes well for a while. But in 2006, 7, and 8, there was a big financial crisis brewing. The mortgage market, collateralized mortgage obligations, CMOs. These brokerage firms would take mortgages that were placed on houses, package them into instruments, and sell them to investors. And the investors made money, supposedly they were going to do it 2 ways. Getting money back on interest income, but the value of the property that they have the mortgage on supposedly would grow to the sky. That's another fallacy, guys. Whenever there's a maybe, everybody thinks, oh, it's going to go on forever. It never goes on forever, right? Now the stock market's really good, and some people are saying, oh, it's going to go up to 30,000 on the Dow. It doesn't happen. And history repeats itself all over and over. So all of a sudden, the mortgage market and the housing market started to have cracks in it. And all of a sudden, these big brokerage firms around the country started getting in trouble. Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, they've been around for 100 years. They went out of business. This whole economy almost cratered. So I couldn't make any money. Excuse me. But I told everybody, I thought to myself, I can't tell these people I'm not making the money. That's against my persona. I have to keep my persona going, whether it's by hook or by crook, I gotta keep it going. So I would tell all the investors, they call, they say, Mark, we're scared. And I say, you don't need to be scared, our money is safe. Well, in reality, it wasn't so safe. So here's what would happen. I had all this money in this one account. Some guy calls me, says, I need $500,000 wired to me. So I wire it to him, but how would I know it was their money? Because I had everyone's money together.
Wow.
So I thought again, it's wrong, but guess what? Everyone's gonna make money, so it doesn't matter what I do or say. I sent statements out to these people that said, well, I paid you this much and you still have this much with me. But in reality, they really didn't. But I'm thinking, you know what, it doesn't matter, because if they made more money than they gave me, it doesn't matter what I say or do. It was all so wrong, but it felt so right back then. And I kept going and going until one day I realized my $65 million stash was down to $2 million. And I was getting scared. I'm thinking, you know what? The FBI's gonna come crashing in and shutting me down, because that's what they were doing to people like